Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I have been pursuing Iran since 1996, when I learned as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee that the United States was sending voluntary contributions to the IAEA in addition to our membership dues, whose voluntary contributions were going for what? To create operational capacity at the Bushehr nuclear facility. That was not in the national interest and security of the United States, and I led an effort to stop that. Now, I have been continuing to pursue Iran for 17 years when it wasn't in the spotlight. And what I have seen is Iran deceive, delay, and over various administrations march forward to the point that it seems that we are now ready to accept some form of an enrichment program in Iran. And so some of us are very skeptical, not because of wide-eyed skepticism, but of reality of what is the history so far. And I have to say, part of my challenge in trying to listen to the administration is some of the same statements I've heard in the past. I was looking at a transcript of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in December 1st of 1991. And many of the arguments I heard then against the pursuit of any sanctions regime is the ones I'm hearing now. Let me quote from the transcript. Secretary Cohen, the concern we have this amendment, which was the Menendez-Kirk amendment, is that we think it risks two things we want to avoid. One is that it risks fracturing the international coalition that has been built up over the last several years to bring pressure on Iran. And we rather consider voluntary action against the Central Bank of Iran rather than to the threat of coercion that is contained in your amendment. You went on to say, we think that, to be clear, our judgment that the best course to pursue at this time is not to apply a mechanism that puts at risk the largest financial institutions, the central bank of some of our closest allies. And you went on to say our position is that the right course is not to adopt this amendment. Now, you know, that's basically what I heard then. That amendment went on to pass 100-0. And it is one of the things that you all, the administration, heralds today as the essence of what has gotten Iran to the negotiating table. So you'll forgive me if I, having heard many of the same arguments, we will break our international coalition, we will not have partners. That has been the arguments as of 2 years ago, and it is the arguments today. I also look at the question of what is really this interim agreement or plan of action all about, and what we hear is versus what the Iranians say. The Iranians say in published reports, quote, Iran said that according to the agreement, the text of the agreement, Iran said it would not make any further advances of its activities. It didn't say its nuclear core. It said any further advances of its activities at the Iraq reactor. And then Zarif told the Parliament in translated comments that it means no nuclear fuel will be produced, but construction will continue there. Now, you say a road or a wall. The reality is if you can continue to construct all the elements except for the nuclear core, that is a fundamental difference. And it is not insignificant, especially if our view is that Iraq really isn't to be allowed at the end of the day. Why would we allow them to even move toward any form of construction which puts a greater and greater investment in their part to achieve their ultimate goal? Then we see today that the Iranians are launching a rocket next week. And though this was supposedly made as their space program, it's well known that this is just a cover for a military ballistic weapons program. I think that's a provocative action in the midst of such negotiations, should be interpreted as a sign of bad faith, and only reaffirms in our mind why we need to proceed with some efforts here. So I'm beginning increasingly, I know I have been a proponent of pursuing additional sanctions prospectively at a time frame beyond the scope of the intended 6 months period that we think is an insurance policy. But I'm beginning to think, based upon all of this, that maybe what the Senate needs to do is define the end game, and at least what it finds as acceptable as the final status. Because I'm getting nervous about what I perceive will be acceptable to us as the final status versus what, in fact, I think, when I say to us, meaning the administration, versus what the Congress might view as acceptable. It may be defining that through a resolution may be a course of action that would affect the ultimate outcome here, which is obviously the most important one. So I just want to put on the record my skepticism based on the history that we've had here, one for 17 years, the other maybe more recent, that I've heard many of these arguments, and they are the arguments, nonetheless, that have had the Senate act and have actually helped the administration achieve some of its goals.